Hi, and welcome back to Echoes from the Satellite. I'm your host, Karen. Today we're going to do something a little bit different, at least different from what I've been doing. And we're going to talk about the book versus the movie. So I'm going to talk about a book today I just read called The Andromeda Strain by Michael Crichton. This is a book that's been around since 1969, so it's not a new book, but it's new to me. The version I have here is from 1993. So I'll try to get some other covers of some other versions up there on the screen. And then we're going to talk about the 1971 film of the Andromeda Strain. Before we get into that, though, I do want to say a little bit about the author, Michael Crichton. So Michael Crichton, very prolific author, did pass away a few years ago. He was an MD, although he was not a practicing MD. He got his medical degree and was already writing at that time. So he had the benefit of having that background, that medical and science background, in order to write a lot of his books. And probably most people recognize him as the author of Jurassic Park, which obviously went on to become a many sequeled film. Lots of blockbusters there. So probably what he's best known for. But he did write a lot of other books, and many of those books became movies. So besides the Andromeda Strain, some of the other books that you might know him for, or because of the films that are associated, might be like The Terminal Man, Coma, Westworld, at least the original Westworld. I don't know how much involvement he might have had in the HBO series, and he might have already passed on by then. I'm not sure. Um, Rising Sun, Disclosure, Congo, The 13th Warrior, which is a particular favorite of mine, which was taken from a book of his called Eaters of the Dead. Um, Twister, he wrote the story for the film. I don't know that there was a novel. I don't think there was a novel to go along with that. So obviously a very prolific writer. He also created the TV series ER, so that's another feather in his cap. So Crichton was a very successful writer, and often his topics were connected to science, related to science in some way. And the Andromeda Strain is no different. So uh, the synopsis that I will give you for the Andromeda Strain is that a satellite that had been put into space by the US comes crashing out of orbit, lands in this small town in Arizona. Um, and when a couple of folks go to retrieve it, they discover that everyone in this small town, except for two people, are dead. And the two survivors are a tiny infant and an elderly gentleman who imbibes not only alcohol, but sterno. So there's this mystery, right? Uh, Brought in to investigate what's happened with this satellite and what may be on it, because the suspicion is, I forgot to mention, the satellite was sent up into space to collect any sort of microorganisms that might be orbiting the planet, might be in outer space, because there is this fear, I guess, from the beginning of the space program that um, our astronauts or even our unmanned probes might bring back some sort of microorganisms with them that, because they would not be native to Earth, would be extremely dangerous to us, right? So this probe was actually sent up, and it was called Scoop, and it was supposed to scoop up microorganisms. So anyway, there's been a special lab assembled in Nevada. It's called Wildfire, and four scientists have been essentially brought in to deal with this emergency. One of them is um, the person who came up with the concept, and he's Dr. Jeremy Stone, who's a Nobel Prize winner and super genius. And then the other four scientists include Dr. Dutton, Dr. Levitt, and then Dr. Hall, who's actually a physician and not a scientist. And so they're all brought in to try to figure out what is going on, what sort of organism might have been brought back. And so a lot of the story revolves around their efforts to um, find the organism on the satellite, characterize it, figure out how it works, and then figure out a way to neutralize it or destroy it. And sort of the ticking clock in this scenario is that they discover that the organism mutates over time. And so the ways that it is transmitted and the ways that it attacks things changes. So at one point, after they've cordoned off this town, a jet flies over it, and the pilot recognizes that all of the rubber materials in the cockpit begin to disintegrate, and indeed even the pilot's flesh begins to disintegrate. So there's different things happening, and they realize they have to move quickly. They need to, somehow figure out how to stop this thing. And eventually they do reach their goal. They figure out how to do it. But towards the end, there is a really critical sequence because the wildfire facility is built atop a nuclear device. The idea being that if there's a leak, if the whatever contagion is escaping, they can blow up the facility and protect everyone from it. And so one person, Mark Hall, who is the physician and also single, and they say this is really important. They've done studies and they found that a single male is more likely to make the correct decision about whether to use or not use a nuclear device than a married male, a married female, or an unmarried female. His percentages are better than everybody else, right? So Hall gets this key, and he's the one who has to make the decision whether to stop the nuclear device, because the device is armed once they enter wildfire. And so towards the end of the story, they start to realize that the virus, which they have named Andromeda, is sort of like a mini reactor. It's a crystalline structure, and that it feeds on energy. And so if they were to blow up the nuclear device, it would actually make like a super colony of Andromeda. So they can't let that happen. And so there's a very exciting sequence towards the end where Hall has to race through the core of the wildfire center, which is like a 5-story center underground, and he has to avoid being hurt or disabled by some of the defenses in the center, and he finally manages to shut things down. Now, I will say about the book is not, even though it might have just sounded like a thriller, it's not really a thriller. There's a lot of scientific stuff going on in it, a lot of talk about testing and different types of, electron microscopes and things like that. Now, in a previous life, I worked in a biotech lab for many years, and so a lot of this stuff was somewhat familiar, even though I haven't done that work in a long time. But it's not the most exciting stuff. It was a little dry, and I have to say the characters are very one-dimensional. We really don't know much at all about these four characters. There's not much to go on. There's not a lot of great dialogue between the characters. It's very much about, well, run these tests, figure this out, do this. It almost seems like someone took protocols and kind of wrote them up. So it wasn't the juiciest book to read. It was interesting, but I would say not the most interesting or exciting book to read. I do feel like the last I don't know, 50 or 60 pages of the book. Then things started to ramp up because they started to make discoveries about the it's not a virus, the microorganism, and what they had to do, and that they had to prevent this nuclear reactor from going off. So um, the last part of the book was actually pretty exciting. But all in all, not, if you're looking for something that's a real, thrilling, exciting read, this would not be my recommendation to you. Good read, solid, but it's not, not an A plus. I'm not sure it's even a B plus. Maybe it's like a B, B minus, something like that. So good, but not great, right? So that's my thoughts on the book. Now, the film I have seen many years before. I've seen it a few times. I haven't seen it in a really long time, so I did watch it again, and I enjoy the film. It's good. Again, it's working pretty closely from the book, so in that way, it too is not like a super exciting thriller, but they did change some things up in the film from the book. Some of the things that they did, I think, really improved upon the book because we do get more time with the characters and we get to know them a little bit more. And the characters have more dimension. One of the big changes they made was that they actually made one of the four scientists a woman. So in the book, they're all men and they're all pretty much interchangeable. There's not a lot of personality. In the film, they all have more personality, and they made Dr. Levitt into Dr. Ruth Levitt, and she's kind of a hoot. She could really be annoying, but she's an interesting character at least. And she has there's some antagonism between her and some of the other characters, which is interesting, which drives some of the story. And I think they really made an effort to humanize the characters more as much as they could. They're still not, totally three-dimensional characters, but they're more interesting. I think they also tried to kind of ramp up the sense of danger or anxiety a little bit more, the tension a little bit more. At least from watching it, that's the way that I felt with the film versus the book. Um, I think another thing that was really interesting is that while it's stated, I think early on in the book, that Project Scoop was intended as sort of a bioweapons program, that's not maybe stated directly in the film until towards the end. And then it's sort of revealed to the characters that, oh yeah, this was a bioweapons program. They see like a big map which plays out like, how this would affect populations, and I think it's both US and Russia or something, and the characters sort of like, what, you guys were going to make weapons with this? And so they're able to have sort of this righteous indignation, which I think for 1971 was a big deal. It was important to show that they were, anti-war and everything. So that was an interesting difference between the book and the film. There's nothing like that in the book. It's they're just totally taking a scientific approach to working the problem without thinking about the larger meaning of, oh, if we characterize this and we understand this, well, what's going to happen next? Nobody says, oh, maybe we'll isolate it and use it as a weapon. That's not discussed. Whereas I think, the film made a better decision in the sense of at least discussing it. Um, I think also that final sequence that I talked about in the book where Dr. Hall has to go up the central core to try to use his key to shut off the nuclear device. In the book, this central core, so there's this central core with a ladder, and it leads to all the other levels. In there are these devices that shoot darts because presumably the idea is, oh, maybe some of the animal subjects have gotten loose in that central core. So they're thinking, rats or monkeys that they're doing testing on because, especially back in 71, you're going to use animals. Even today, you're going to use animals for certain things. And so they had darts in the book that they would shoot. So he's dodging darts with, like a nerve agent in them that would paralyze him. In the movie, because they can kind of glitz it up in the movie, there's lasers. So as he's climbing through the core, these lasers are shooting at him with these green laser lights. And he does get burned a few times. He gets hit in the cheek, and there's like a hole in his cheek. And that was really trippy. At least the first time I saw it, it was like shocking. Like he's got this hole in his cheek, and he starts to like almost faint and fall off the ladder. And Dr. Stone is on an intercom telling him, "It's okay, go on. You're just feeling shock. Just keep climbing," which is great. Like, yeah, you've been shot in the face. I'm pretty sure most people are going to faint. But anyway, he keeps going. He gets shot in the hand too. And he manages to still make it out and turn the key. But they really upped the ante in the film with the lasers. I thought that was great. Um, and then the ending, I have to admit, when I was reading the book, it felt very abrupt in the end. So Hall shuts off the nuclear device, and then we go to the next chapter, and he's waking up in the hospital, and he's like, "Well, what happened? What happened?" And they said, "Oh, well, and Andromeda, the super colony, has just floated up into the upper atmosphere, and it seems benign, and we think we're okay." And I was like, "What? Wait, what? That's it? That seems really abruptly like resolved." And like, you kind of want to feel like we had a hand in like terminating this or fixing this, and how do we know it's going to be benign? In the film, the super colony goes up into the clouds, and it's drifting out over the ocean. And then they take planes and they do um, cloud seeding, right? And with, I think, like silver nitrate or something, uh, because what they've found is that Andromeda can only live in a very small pH range. So they're making it extremely acidic to like neutralize it. So I thought, oh, well, that is a more satisfying ending. It feels like, oh, okay, so we did something, we're neutralizing it, and we feel pretty good about it. Although it still leaves you at that very end with Dr. Stone in a meeting with, I think it's like a congressional meeting, and they're kind of like, well, could this happen again? So you're left with that sort of 70s paranoia, which I am so fond of. So all in all, I would say that I think the film was better than the book. I I I usually don't feel that way. I usually enjoy books more. I usually feel like the books give you, more depth of topic or characters. But in this case, I really feel like the film did a better job of that. Um, it definitely connected more with the characters. I think it gave us a better ending, and I think it kept up a better pace overall than the book did. Now, this is one of Michael Crichton's earliest books too, and I will say I think. I read a couple other books by him. I did read Jurassic Park because that was such a big deal, especially when I was working in biotech. Everybody was reading Jurassic Park. I think he became a better writer as he went on, which is, probably true of most writers. Um, and I think, in this case, you've just got a story where um, it's pretty slow. It's slow. It's not maybe paced as well as it could be. And, the characters are very one-dimensional. So it's not a terrible book. I would say, you can read it. It's got a lot of interesting ideas, and I think that happens a lot with science fiction authors. Sometimes they are great at coming up with ideas, but not always great at making them exciting. And this book, I would say, is somewhere between making it exciting and not so exciting. But the film, I think, is a little bit better. So that's what I've got for you this week. I would love to hear other people's thoughts on this. I know that Michael Crichton is some people really enjoy his work. But I've also heard a lot of negatives too. So whatever you think, I'd love to hear it, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on the film as well. So please do leave some comments. And that's it for me this week. Thanks for watching. Hope everybody is doing well, staying safe, and I'll see you back here real soon.